The rain fell hard that night, slicing through the air like glass as thunder cracked over the small roadside diner on Highway 16. Inside, the neon light flickered over empty booths and the faint smell of coffee and motor oil hung heavy. It was almost closing time when the door opened, bringing in a young woman drenched from the storm. Her name was Emily. She was quiet, petite, with deep eyes that carried a sadness too old for her 21 years. She walked in wearing an oversized denim jacket and jeans torn at the knees, the kind of girl who looked invisible to most people, the kind everyone ignored. She took a corner booth, her hands trembling as she tried to warm them around a cup of coffee. The waitress gave her a polite smile before heading back to the counter. Emily wasn't there to talk. She wasn't even there to eat. She was just trying to breathe, trying to disappear for a little while from a world that hadn't shown her kindness in a long time. But some people, it seems, can smell vulnerability like wolves smell blood. Two men sat across the diner, drunk, loud, and careless. They'd been there for an hour, tossing back cheap beer and laughing like the world belonged to them. When they noticed Emily, the laughter quieted. One of them, tall and mean-looking with tattoos creeping up his neck, grinned at the other. "Fresh meat," he muttered. They stood, swaggering over, and slid into the booth across from her without invitation. Emily stiffened, her heartbeat quickening. She kept her eyes on her coffee, praying they'd just leave her alone. But prayers that night weren't heard. One of them reached for her jacket, trying to pull it off, and when she resisted, he grabbed harder. The fabric tore. The sound of ripping cloth echoed through the diner. Her shirt came apart at the shoulder, exposing bruises fresh, dark, and painful to look at. The room froze. The waitress gasped. The old man at the counter looked away, pretending he hadn't seen anything. Fear filled the air like smoke. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't scream. She just whispered, "Please stop." They didn't. High voltage if you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for those who can't. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps us tell more stories that matter. High voltage. The taller man laughed, shoving her shoulder. "What's a girl like you doing out here alone, huh?" he sneered. His friend joined in, pulling at her sleeve again. Emily tried to cover herself, trembling uncontrollably. The waitress moved to help, but the men turned, threatening her with a glare so cold she froze mid-step. No one else dared to move. Then the bell above the door jingled. The sound was small, but it changed everything. 3 figures stepped in, soaked from the rain, leather jackets shining under the diner lights. The first man through the door had a thick beard, steel gray eyes, and the unmistakable patch of the Hell's Angels spread across his back. The second was bigger, bald, with tattoos down to his knuckles. The third carried an aura of danger that made even the air seem to tighten. Emily didn't see them at first. Her head was down, tears slipping quietly onto her coffee cup. But the bearded man saw her, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. "Emily," he said softly. The taller drunk turned, frowning. "Who the hell are you?" The man didn't answer. He just walked forward slowly, his boots heavy against the linoleum floor. Behind him, the other two fanned out, their eyes fixed on the scene unfolding. When Emily looked up and saw him, her lips trembled. "Ethan," she whispered. "Her brother." He hadn't seen her in almost 2 years, not since the night she disappeared after their parents' funeral. He searched every city, every town, chasing whispers of where she might have gone. And now, by some cruel twist of fate, he'd found her, terrified, humiliated, and broken. The drunk man still didn't understand who he was dealing with. "Listen, old man," he sneered, stepping closer, "this ain't your business." Ethan didn't blink. His voice was calm, cold, deadly. "You just made it my business." The man laughed, pushing him slightly in the chest. It was the last thing he should have done. Ethan's fist came up like lightning, slamming into the man's jaw so hard he flew backward, crashing through a table. The second man lunged forward, but before he could reach Emily, one of Ethan's brothers, the bald one, grabbed him by the collar and slammed him into the counter. Dishes shattered. The waitress screamed. The whole diner erupted in chaos. But it was over fast, too fast. Ethan stood over the two men, his chest heaving. The one on the floor groaned, trying to get up, until Ethan leaned down and whispered something in his ear. Whatever he said drained the blood from the man's face. The waitress stood frozen near the counter. The old man looked up from his coffee, awe in his eyes. Ethan turned to his sister. "Come here," he said softly. Emily hesitated. Then she stood, clutching her torn jacket around her shoulders, and walked toward him. When she reached him, she collapsed into his arms and sobbed, years of pain pouring out at once. Ethan held her tight, his jaw trembling, his eyes shining with tears he refused to let fall. For the first time in years, she felt safe. When the police arrived, the two attackers were already sitting outside in the rain, beaten but alive. Ethan made sure of that. The waitress told the officers exactly what happened, how the men harassed a young girl, how the bikers saved her life. The cops knew better than to pick a fight with the Hell's Angels, especially when they were the heroes that night. As the officers drove the men away, Ethan turned to Emily. "Let's go home," he said. But Emily shook her head. "I can't go back there," she whispered. "There's nothing left for me." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "Then we'll make something new." They rode out of town on Ethan's bike, her arms wrapped tightly around his waist, the rain washing away the dirt, the blood, the fear. For the first time in a long while, she felt the world opening again, not as a cruel place, but as a chance to start over. In the following days, Ethan's crew took her in like family. They gave her a place to stay, food to eat, and something she hadn't felt in years, belonging. Emily helped out at their garage, sweeping floors, handing tools, and slowly finding her confidence again. The men treated her like a sister, not because of Ethan, but because of the way she smiled despite everything she'd been through. One night, while the others drank around a bonfire, Ethan sat beside her and said, "You know, you used to call me a monster for joining this life." She smiled faintly. "Maybe you were just trying to find a family before I knew what that meant." He chuckled, taking a drag from his cigarette. "We all need something to fight for, Em. I just didn't know mine was you." Her eyes filled again, but this time with warmth. For months, Emily worked at the diner again, the same one where it all happened. The owner had offered her a job after hearing what she'd endured. At first, she was scared to go back. But she did. Because healing, she realized, meant facing the places that hurt you most and walking through them stronger. She became known as the biker's sister, but she wasn't defined by it. People respected her not because of Ethan's patch, but because of her quiet strength, the kind that survives, forgives, and keeps living. And sometimes, late at night, she'd sit outside the diner, watching the headlights pass on Highway 16. The rain would come and go, but she'd stay because now she wasn't running from the world. She was part of it again. Months later, on a cold evening, the same waitress who'd once been too afraid to move came up to her and said, "You know, I still think about that night." Emily smiled softly. "So do I every day." "Do you ever forgive them?" the waitress asked. Emily looked out the window at the empty road. "Forgiveness isn't for them," she said. "It's for me, so I can keep moving." That night, as the diner lights flickered and the rain began to fall again, a group of bikes roared past outside, loud, fearless, and free. Emily smiled. Somewhere among them was her brother, watching over her the way he always promised he would. She touched the silver pendant he'd given her, a small angel wing with the letters HA etched on the back, and whispered, "Thank you. For saving me, for finding me, for loving me even when I was lost." Rose, if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring real, emotional stories to life and reminds the world that strength and kindness still exist. Rose. Speech balloon. And before you go, drop a comment below. Would you have stepped in to protect her that night?